over the place. They're little flames, and they all have a pretty good power supply. The ones have a lot of oil. The other ones have already some atomic power.
And many of them make big business with
atomic bombs. We tried that out. I mean, we told the Japanese to give up. And instead of giving up, they attacked Pearl Harbor. So we had really no choice. And we tried that bomb. And that really did it. And they very quickly gave up. So we made that experience before once, that one can, and we've seen it now, what happened when the Hiroshima and in Japan, when the atomic energy production goes haywire, what that all can do.
Yes, so unfortunately it did not change a lot, to my opinion, because there's a lot of money behind it, and probably it's the same problem with
money behind it, and especially
the war industry.
There's a need on the part of politicians and the wish to get re-elected. And democracy in many countries has reached a stage where to get elected you cannot afford to tell your voters that they are living beyond their means, that they have to cut off a little bit of the champagne and drink a little more water or whatever. If you tell them that, they won't elect you. So if you tell them they have as much champagne as they ever want, they'll elect you.
Would you say that the situation now is much worse than it was in Second World War?
Yeah.
So that
I would say that it is worse, much worse if you like. That's a question of time. But I would definitely feel the situation is worse, because instead of one bastard like Hitler, we have a lot of bastards.
And you're a journalist and author, and you told me before that there is also a problem with journalism, which actually supports also with their information that the risk is increasing, that we get a few more wars. Can you explain to the people how this works and why?
Well, those characters of whom we just spoke, who are not just like Hitler in one country, all over the place, cannot do what they are doing without the support of the media.
Okay, and who controls the media?
The media cannot exist without printed media, and also some of the television media. They cannot exist without funds, and the funds they do not get from the voters, the participants, sufficient. They sell a paper for a couple of euro. That doesn't bring it. So what they need is more money. They get the more money from the advertising or sponsoring, whatever you want to call it. It's communication in the positive or negative sense. And that's what they live from. And that makes them tell their journalists, you better write the way our advertisers and our sponsors like you, or you don't, because we need the money, otherwise we don't exist. And that has happened only in the last 35 years, since the electronic media became globalized completely.
Okay. And can you explain, after the Second World War, when you were boss of communication and public relation, you also did control the media. How did you do this? How did this process work? And how did you control the information from opinion makers and fact makers?
In two ways. Directly after the war, we produced die Neue Zeitung, which we produced in Berlin and Munich, and printed in Berlin and Munich. And the way we showed how to do it, how to produce, how to write facts, and next to the facts with a name, opinion. And we licensed German media, newspapers, magazines. That is, they had to get a license from us. And we talked first and interviewed, I did some of that myself, interviewed future editors, redactors and journalists, and only when we were sure that they were willing and able to separate facts from opinion did we give them a license. And then, in the beginning, we checked what they were doing. And in a few cases, they did not do it right, we canceled the license. We said, first censorship. We don't accept that.
So you did.
And I remember one typical thing. I was sitting in my office in Bad Homburg, now in Nauheim, and it was at the end of a long corridor, and so the space was very narrow. I had my desk, and there was a long space up to the door, and then somebody knocked, and I said, "Come in." And then a young, good-looking young German writer came and stood in front of my desk, clicked his heels, and went like this, and said, "I would like to have a license." And I said, "Now, the first thing is you sit down. And the second thing is, you don't behave like a soldier here. You want to write." And so on and so forth. They were so imbued with that, I sent him back. I said, "Now think about that and come back in a couple of days." I did not give him a license right then and there.
And they had to do like test writing, of course, I guess.
I mean, I tried to teach him that a soldier with clicking heels and hands at the thing was not a free person to have an opinion or to differentiate between fact and fiction.
And there was there a program behind this, like this Marshall Plan, of course? Was it a public relation program, plan, psychological war plan, that was also actually the basics of the censors or the control?
Well, in the first place, you keep saying public relations and communication. Public relations is part of communication. It's the other way around. Communication is the top thing. My own experience was that I had left the government, I had left the Foreign Service. They had wanted me to stay and come back, wanted me to go to India and become information chief in India. And I did not want to do that because my experience with bureaucracy had been so terrible that I felt to get up in the morning at 9 o'clock and call Washington and say, "Can I now go and take a leak?" Or leak heißt pink piss. Or do I have to first have a cup of coffee? And I just didn't want to have Washington tell me every day what I could do. Before I had a free way. I did a lot of things. I never told them. They found out here afterwards. But then they tightened the thing. And so I went back into the export business, which I had been before. And I was in Geneva on business, and walked on the Quai du Mont Blanc and ran into my old buddy from the army, from the war, who had remained with the, he was an American-born, a Russian-born in Shanghai, and an American citizen. And we had played a lot of chess together and so on and so forth. And I met him on the street, and he had just came on vacation from Berlin, where he was stationed. And he said, "We talked about you last week." And I said, well, the State Department wants to do a job behind the Iron Curtain.
Okay.
Public relations, information.
Behind the Iron Curtain.
Behind the Iron Curtain.
Secret.
Psychological peace fair, if you like.
Okay.
And so and he said, we talked about who could do such a job. And then somebody said, well, Toby Rodes could do it.
Mm.
And so we said, well, where is he? Well, nobody knew. And he said, now you know. And I was about to go back to America anyhow because the export business did not bring in Europe what we had hoped, what I had hoped. So I said, well, you tell him, I haven't had a vacation since before the war, which was true. Working for the government is anyhow half a vacation. You tell them if they want me to do it, I'll do it. Do something. So they asked me to Frankfurt. I talked to some official and he said, well, your super secret intelligence clearance, which is only valid for a certain period, then it runs out, you have to renew it. He said, we have to renew that, it just ran out. I said, okay, do that. And after about 3 months, they then called me and said, well, now come, it's all clear. And when I came to Frankfurt a couple of days later to check in, the official there said to me, the captain there said to me, I'm terribly sorry, but yesterday the State Department decided not to do the project. But in Berlin is the American press officer for the American commander in Berlin, and he's been wanting to go on vacation for ever so long. So please, now you're hired by the State Department, so you please go to Berlin and take over the press officer job until he comes back from his vacation. And that's how I got into the Marshall Plan. Then I started in Berlin,